Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 24, verses 16 to 30. So, because there are so many verses, we're going to chant the first one together, although it doesn't have a purport, so that we don't lose track of the story. Okay. Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Kalashapshu nityahainam.
Kalashapsu nidayainam.
Kalashapshu nityahainam.
Kalashapsu nidayainam.
Dayaluninya ashramam.
Dayalulinya ashramam.
Dayaluninya ashramam.
Dayalulinya ashramam. Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Kalapsu nidaya. Kalashapsu nidayanam.
Kalapshapshu nitayainam.
Dayalulinya ashramam.
Dayalunya ashramam. Tasyadinataram vakyam.
Asrutiya samahipati.
Ashrutya samahipati.
Kalashapsu nidyanam.
Kalashapshu nitayainam.
Dayalulinya ashramam.
Dayalunya ashramam. Okay, thank you. Tasyaha,
Tasyaha,
of the fish.
of the fish.
Dinataram,
Dinataram,
pitiable. Pitiable. It comes from the word pity, mitleid zu haben. To have compassion, to have pity. Vakyam,
Vakyam,
words.
words.
Ashrutya,
Ashrutya,
hearing.
hearing.
Saha,
Saha,
that.
that.
Mahipati,
Mahipati,
the king.
the king.
Kalasha apsu,
Kalasha apsu,
in the water contained. In the water contained in the water jug. In water contained in the water jug. So a krug. A jug is a krug. So the water that was inside the jug. Nidaya,
Nidaya,
taking, enam,
Enam,
the fish.
the fish.
Dayalu, merciful.
Merciful.
brought
Abode.
to bring.
Asu.
Ashramam,
Ashramam.
to his residence.
Hui. Resident.
Residence, ja. Zijn woonort. Okay. Translation and purport, not purport, translation and many verses and purport by His Divine Grace. Deze wat ik net als zo'n Shilapapa. So, 16. The merciful king, being moved by the pitiable words of the fish, placed the fish in a water jug and brought him to his own residence. 17. Zatu Taitraika Ratrena Vartamana Kamantalo Alatvatma Vakashamba Idam Aha Mahipatim. But in one night that fish grew so much that he could not move his body comfortably in the water of the pot. He then spoke to the king as follows. I'm just going to read the English, otherwise it's hard to follow. Okay, so he spoke to the king as follows. 18. Oh my dear king, I do not like living in this water pot with such great difficulty. Therefore, please find some better reservoir of water where I can live comfortably. Then, taking the fish out of the water pot, the king threw him in a large well. But within a moment, the fish developed to a length of 3 cubits. The fish then said, My dear king, this reservoir of water is not fit for my happy residence. Please find me a more extensive pool of water, for I have taken shelter of you. 21. O Maharaj Parikshit, the king took the fish from the well and threw him in a lake, but the fish then assumed a gigantic form, exceeding the extent of the water. The fish then said, O king, I am a large aquatic, and this water is not at all suitable for me. Now kindly find some way to save me. It would be better to put me in the water of a lake that will never reduce. When thus requested, King Satyavrata took the fish to the largest reservoir of water, but when that also proved insufficient, the king at last threw the gigantic fish into the ocean. While being thrown in the ocean, the fish said to the king Satyavrata, O hero, in this water there are very powerful and dangerous sharks that will eat me. Therefore, you should not throw me in this place. After hearing these sweet words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a fish, the king, being bewildered, asked him, Who are you, sir? You simply bewilder us. My lord, in one day you have expanded yourself for hundreds of miles, covering the water of the river and the ocean. Before this, I had never seen or heard of such an aquatic animal. My Lord, you are certainly the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, Sri Hari. It is to show your mercy to the living entities that you have now assumed the form of an aquatic. 28. O my Lord, Master of creation, maintenance and annihilation, O best of enjoyers, Lord Vishnu, you are the leader and destination of surrendered devotees like us. Therefore, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. All your pastimes and incarnations appear for the welfare of all living entities. Therefore, my Lord, I wish to know the purpose for which you have assumed this form of a fish. Okay, now we get to 13. Nate Ravindraksha. Nate Ravindra. Nate Ravindraksha Padopa Sarpanam Mrisha Bhavet Sarvasurit Priyatmanaha Yatetaresham Pritak Atmanam Satam Aditrisho Yadvapur Adputam Hinam. Translation. O my Lord, possessing eyes like the petals of a lotus, the worship of the demigods who are in the bodily concept of life is fruitless in all respects, but because you are the supreme friend and dearmost supersoul of everyone, worship of your lotus feet is never useless. You have therefore manifested your form as a fish. Purport. The demigods like Indra, Chandra and Surya are ordinary living entities who are differentiated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord expands himself through the living beings, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. His personal Vishnu Tattva forms, which are all spiritual, are called Svamsha, and the living entities who are differentiated parts are called Vibhinamsha. Some of the Vibhinamsha forms are spiritual and some are a combination of matter and spirit. The conditioned souls in the material world are different from their external bodies made of material energy. Thus, the demigods living in the upper planetary systems and the living entities living in the lower planetary systems are of the same nature. Nonetheless, those living as human beings on this planet are sometimes attracted to worshipping the demigods in the higher planetary systems. Such worship is temporary, as the human beings on the planet have to change their bodies. Tata deha tara praptihi. The living entities known as Indra, Chandra, Varuna, and so on will also have to change their bodies in due course of time. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Antavatu palam tesham tat bhavatyaptalpa nidasham. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Kamastaistar hitra janaha prapatyante niya devataha. Those who do not know the position of the demigods are inclined to worship the demigods for some material purpose, but the results of such worship are never permanent. Consequently, here it is said, Yateta shera saresa naman. Yateta resha pritak atmanam satam. Padopasa panam. Mrisha Bhavet. In other words, if one is to worship someone else, he must worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then his worship will never be fruitless. Svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even a slight attempt to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a permanent asset. Therefore, as recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tyaktva dharmam charana pujam harehe. One should take to the worship of the lotus feet of Hari, even if this means giving up the so-called occupational duty assigned because of the particular body one has accepted. Because worship in terms of body is temporary, it does not bear any permanent fruit, but worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives immense benefit. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Ganamayam Dharati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Prakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savarutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Savana Lalita Shri Vishakamitam Shra He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namusite Tapta Kanshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vibhaja Patitanam Pavandu Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, I'll just read 30 again. O my Lord, possessing eyes like petals of lotus, the worship of demigods who are in the bodily concept of life is fruitless in all respects. But because you are the supreme friend and dearmost supersoul of everyone, worship of your lotus feet is never useless. You have therefore manifested your form as a fish. Yeah, so the beginning and the end is quite something. The beginning of the purport and the end of the purport. So the beginning of the purport says, the demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, and Surya are ordinary living entities who are differentiated parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so ordinary living entities, the demigods. Then Krishna says, one should take to the worship of the lotus feet of Hari, even if this means giving up the so-called occupational duty assigned because of the particular body one has accepted. Because worship in terms of the body is temporary, it does not bear any permanent fruit, but worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives immense benefit. Now, this is quite difficult because I'm not sure how to serve Krishna if I don't use my body. So, but it is very important to remember that, number one, the demigods are on the same plane as us, so they are also in the material world, but they are obviously very, very well developed. They are of the same quality as us, meaning that they are going to die just like we are, but they are not of the same quantity, so their capabilities are obviously much more. And that's why it is so attractive to worship them, because we as living entities, we as living beings, we may think that our bodies are really awesome and we can do a lot of it, and especially if you are really well trained and fit and healthy, you think, I have no problems. But we have absolutely no idea what the capabilities of the human body were many years ago. I mean, just to look at in our lifetime, not in our lifetime, but not so many years ago, the memory and the capabilities of people were much better. The reason why Vyasadeva came to write down the Vedas was because our memory was not good enough to remember it anymore. So just the fact that we have words on paper shows us how degraded we have become, because we can't keep it all in our minds. But obviously the demigods, you have to work really hard. You have to earn it to become a demigod. And a demigod like Indra, Chandra and Surya, these are not their names, these are their titles. So these are their functions. Indra is the demigod of the heavens and the rain. Chandra is the demigod of the moon planet. Surya is the demigod of the sun. And then you have Varuna, who controls all the bodies of water, and so forth and so forth. So, sometimes, nonetheless, those living as human beings on this planet are sometimes attracted to worshipping the demigods in the higher planetary systems. Such worship is temporary. So, we may think it's permanent, because if someone worships the demigod and they get benefit, this benefit may last their whole life, but still, at the end of their life, they will pass away, they will leave their body, and any kind of benefit, any kind of material benefit, they will lose. And so that's why King Satyavrata said, the demigods, yeah, okay, you can worship them, but they won't bring you anything. It's fruitless in all respects, because you can't keep it. Whatever you ask them for materially, you cannot keep. So that's why it's fruitless. If you can't keep something, it doesn't matter. But whatever you do for the personality of Godhead, that is permanent. So that's the use of the demigods. The demigods, because they are so much higher than us, they can give us a lot of material benefit, but the best way to make use of them or to approach them is to ask them for help in serving Krishna. That they are happy with. So, for instance, Shiva, a lot of women go to him to ask him for a husband or for a husband or anything, because Shiva is known as someone who is very easily pleased, but also very easily angered, but he's very easily pleased. So if you worship Lord Shiva, it's not that difficult to get what you want. But Shiva is most pleased when we ask him for help in serving Krishna. That makes him extremely happy. And the same with Indra and Chandra and Surya, is you can ask them to help you to serve Krishna. And then to get to the last part of the purport, where the Prophet says that we should serve Krishna even when we have to give up our occupational duty bound to this body. So each and everybody of us has a body, either as a woman or as a man, and we have different talents and we have different characteristics and whatever, and that is our toolbox with which we can serve Krishna. But even when we have to give it up, we still have to serve Krishna. And there's this wonderful story, Kadamakanana Swami once told it. So Kadamakanana Swami, as most of you know, he was, as we would say in German, abgefahren. He was far out. service. He was responsible for building the Samadhi, Prabhupada Samadhi in Raipur. And if you've ever been there, you'd know it's a beautiful, big building, and it took a long time. And he was given this task of managing the building. And building in any country is difficult, but building in India is 100 times more difficult, because it's difficult to get the right stuff. The people try and cheat you, they try and give you cheaper stuff, so it's a very, very difficult thing to do. But like everything else he does it phenomenally well. He does it very, very well. But once in a lecture, people were talking about, I can't remember if someone asked him about this, but the topic came up about this: you should serve Krishna according to your nature. And then he said, well, but no one asked me about my nature when they gave me the building site. No one. So in the olden days, in the beginning days of ISKCON, you see this. In the beginning days of ISKCON, when everything started, it didn't matter so much what you were of nature. The devotees understood that there's a task to be done, and we have to do it, whether you can or not. Obviously, whenever Prabhupada met someone that was really qualified to do something, he tried to engage them according to their nature. But a lot of the times people just had to go beyond what they normally would do in order to achieve the goal of starting this movement. So, there was, I mean, just to not, I don't want to negate, I don't want to say that you shouldn't follow your nature. Prabhupada also, he used people according to the nature as well. For instance, when they wanted to build the temple in Vrindavan, someone, I can't remember who, met this person, and this person was an architect, and they took him to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada immediately thought, aha, and he spoke to him a little bit about it, and this person, he said, okay, just give me a pen and a paper. And later on, and he drew a plan of the temple, and he drew a sketch of what it looked like in one go. If he put his pen on paper, he could draw without lifting his pen again. So Prabhupada said, yes, we invite you to an initiation tomorrow. And he said, oh, yeah, cool, I can come. Who's getting initiated? This person asked. And Prabhupada said, you. So Prabhupada immediately initiated. He became, I forgot the name, Surabi. I want to say Surabi, but I'm not sure. He was he built the Vrindavan temple, he did the sketches, and I think he also did the Juhu temple. But so, yes, Prabhupada saw an architect, and he immediately engaged him in that. And Tamal Krishna was a phenomenal manager, so Prabhupada gave him managing things to do. But there are a lot of things, and obviously the artists got engaged as being artists, but there were a lot of things to do: book distribution, cleaning the pots, building the temples, managing affairs. Whatever Prabhupada wanted, his devotees did. So sometimes he expected things of them that were above what they usually would do, so they would have to do outside, they have to go outside of their comfort zone. And this is what I think this part means, is that if you are a teacher or an accountant or a cook or whatever, sometimes you have to do things that are not completely in your nature. Like it would happen that we, for instance, don't have a cook for the Sunday feast, then we would have to find someone, and maybe that person, usually you try and find someone who can cook, but if it's an absolute emergency, then you would just have to do it, right? You have to just do it, because there's no way that the Sunday feast cannot continue. You can't just say, oh, we don't have a cook, there's no Sunday feast. No. The Sunday feast is a very important part of our program. So we have to do whatever it takes in order to make it happen. And I know that because I said that Krishna is going to test whether I'm going to do it later, but let's see. The point is that our mindset, it begins with our mindset. Our mindset should be, yes, the demigods are to be respected. They are highly developed, very, very devotional beings, and therefore they deserve my respect, and I should respect them. But I should not ask them, because whatever they give me, they have to go and ask Krishna for it anyway. So if you want something, you go directly to Krishna. And if you need help in order to serve Krishna, that's where you can ask the demigods. But Krishna says, whatever you want, just ask me. Just ask me, because I'm the source of everything. I can give you everything. So whatever it is that we need or want, or whatever's going on, go to Krishna. The second thing is that we are currently eternal souls stuck in a body with a specific mind, with specific tendencies, and that is our default toolbox. So you have your toolbox, and obviously that Krishna wants you to use them. So Krishna also says, we also know that if you don't use the things Krishna gives you, then he is going to take it away. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai. So if you don't use your toolbox properly, Krishna is going to take away those tools, either in this life or in the next life. Because they are a gift. Everything that we have is a gift from Krishna, and we can never repay him for giving us this gift. But our gratitude is a way of showing him respect. So you gratefully accept what he gives you, and you show your gratitude. You show your gratitude for those gifts by using them properly. But Krishna also says that don't get comfortable. We should go beyond our comfort zone sometimes. So in psychology we also know that there are three areas of life. There's the area of the comfort zone, the thing that you are most comfortable with. There is the stretch zone, and then there is the emergency zone. The stretch zone is sort of, say for instance you are a cook, and you're used to cooking for 20 people. That's kind of your comfort zone. Now all of a sudden, there's a big festival, nobody else can cook, and now you have to cook for 200. That is a stretch zone. That's something that you can do, but it's a little bit more than you are used to. So it requires a little bit of a stretch. If you are a manager and you're used to managing a temple and a small temple somewhere, and all of a sudden someone asks you to be a temple of a bigger place, of a bigger place, it's a stretch zone. It's something that anything that you haven't done before, that's a little bit above what you are used to, that's a stretch zone. And that's good. That means growth. So if someone asks you to cook for 200 people, and you do it once, then it's fine. Then you've grown, then you've developed. And emergency zone is when you are used to cooking at home, but now people ask you to cook for 50 people or for 200 people. That's an emergency. That's something that you haven't done before at all. Or you're doing just a normal job and all of a sudden you have to become the temple president. Sometimes we also have to do things that we don't like to do, that are not within our nature. For instance, if you ask a very, very shy person to now speak in front of people, or to do things that require them to be outgoing, that could be a stretch zone, but it could also be an emergency zone. The thing is that the emergency things, they have to get done. It's an emergency for a reason, that it has to get done right now, and sometimes we just have to do them because we are available, whether we can or not. And that's what Krishna means, is that sometimes there's a task that's important and we are there. So, but again, there has to be a balance. You cannot stay in emergency zone for the rest of your life, except when you are extremely transcendental. But there is where the human intelligence, or I don't know, the divine intelligence comes in, where you know how to do the balance. So, yeah, it's very. Sometimes we can also feel inside of ourselves when we are stuck. Sometimes we feel not nice. Devotional service becomes a little bit flat, and you're not so inspired. That's maybe one sign to know that you need a challenge. So whenever your devotional service gets a little bit difficult and you're unmotivated, it can either be because it's too difficult, because you've stretched yourself too far, or it is because you don't stretch yourself enough. And that is where it becomes important to talk to the sadhus, to talk to devotees, to talk to your spiritual master. Because sometimes it is difficult for ourselves to know in what position we are, but we need some outside help to know what it is that we need to do. Stretch ourselves or tone it down a little bit. But whatever it is, our goal should always be, Krishna, I am your servant, how can I serve you? Full stop. And then pray for the mercy and the ability to do so. But Krishna, if he gives you a task to do, he also gives you the ability to do it in some way. But again, it requires from us a great deal of emotional intelligence to know when to ask for help, when to let someone else do it, and when to stretch ourselves. And I am not the best person to sit here and talk about it, because I myself have difficulty doing that, to either ask for help or to sometimes know when I stretch myself too far. So, that's me, and that's all I wanted to say today. Are there any questions, any comments, any additions, subtractions? Yes.
Thank you very much for this very interesting topic in the Kamala-sita. I thought, as you were telling about the task of Kadamba Maharaj and Mayapur, I thought of, we live in very comfortable devotee times now, that we can engage ourselves according to our nature and so on. And my question is, do you have a practical example? We said if we need help in serving Krishna, we can ask the demigods. Do you have a practical example when we in our devotional life should
For instance, a story is that, I mean, from Indradyumna Maharaj, once he was invited in Vrindavan somewhere, I can't remember who it was, but he was invited to the opening of a new museum or somewhere, some kind of exhibition, permanent exhibition, and he spoke to someone who had a Ganesh deity that was going to go to this exhibition. And in this exhibition, the Ganesh deity would have been behind glass and just there. And he's like, oh no, you can't put a servant of Krishna behind a piece of glass and not worship him. And then so Indradyumna Maharaj now has this Ganesh deity. I don't know where exactly he is, but he very definitely said, my disciples should not now think that they can have Ganesh deities at home. Like, it's not just because he took the Ganesh deity doesn't mean that it is a license for everybody else to do it. He took the Ganesh deity because it was an emergency. You cannot, so in his mind, no, Ganesh has to be served. But he said that, so for instance, Ganesh is a servant of Krishna. And Ganesh is also, why does everybody have Ganesh in India? Everywhere you go, there will be a Ganesh at the door. Even I have a Ganesh because I got him as a birthday present. Ganesh came to us in a birthday present form. He's at our door. Why? Because he removes obstacles. So, he's a demigod, but we can pray to Ganesh. Please, if you have a Ganesh, if you see Ganesh anywhere you go, it doesn't mean you have to have a Ganesh, but if you see him somewhere, you can pray to him, please, Ganesh, help me to serve Krishna by removing the obstacles I have. Internal obstacles, external obstacles, and he'd be happy to do that. Usually people pray him for removing the obstacles, please, for this business deal or whatever. No, they make material, but Ganesh can also remove spiritual obstacles. And he's also a scribe. He also wrote things down. So if you are a writer in any way, you can pray to him, please help me to write something for Krishna. Like, so that's an example. It doesn't mean that we should now get him in our home, but if he somehow comes to your home, you cannot say, no, you can't be here. He comes because Krishna sends him, but you can pray to him for, that's just one example. Or to Shiva. Shiva is known as the greatest devotee of Krishna. So you can also pray to Krishna, to Shiva. Please, Shiva, help me to serve Krishna. Help me to become a better devotee. Remove my mode of ignorance. Protect me against the mode of ignorance. Whatever. So any prayer that we have in terms of please help me to be a better servant, that we can pray to the demigods, and they will help us.
What came to my mind now, that we in Vastu we use these yantras. Now I had a Vastu seminar once, also with a devotee, and we have these different yantras, like Shri yantra or so. No, it's not demigods yantra. Are there also Ganesh?
No, they're also personalities. They're also every mantra is also personal.
The yantra, no?
Yeah, mantra, yantra, anything. There's a personality behind it. Like the ragas that you play on the harmonium. Each of the ragas are also personalities. No, there are each of the. There's a story somewhere in some Upanishad or maybe in the ragas are also personalities. The yantras are also personalities. Where do you think they get their energy from? So even Krishna's weapons, each and every single weapon that Krishna has is also a personality. In the I think it was Arjuna, most probably it was Arjuna. Yeah, when every time he got a weapon, a celestial weapon, that weapon would appear to him in personal form. So it is a weapon, but there is a personality behind it. So yes, that's where the yantras get there. There's a personality that is responsible for the power of that yantra. But again, we shouldn't separate them from Krishna. They get their power from Krishna. When Krishna says, I am the ability in man, it's not just man, it's just everything. Everything that has an ability, that ability comes from Krishna. So Krishna is the original source of all the abilities, and we should never forget that. So instead of stopping your worship at the level of the demigods, that's why the whole Govardhan Leela took place. Is Indra is just Indra because Krishna gives him the power to be Indra. So rather than serve him directly, Indra, go to Krishna, go to Govardhan. So, and all the demigods know that. That's why Brahma couldn't give Hiranyakashipu immortality. So Hiranyakashipu served and worshipped Brahma because he is the highest one of the demigods. He is the creator of this material world, and he wanted immortality, and Brahma said, so sorry, can't give you that because I don't have only Vishnu can, and I can't do it. I don't have the power to do it. So all the abilities that we have come from Krishna. So that's why Krishna says, come to me directly. Whether it is a material thing, whether it is a spiritual thing, whatever it is, you ask Krishna. So yeah, that's what I meant with the demigods.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Yes, Valentina.
Just to leave the class with the right understanding. The example you gave about what is example? Like a kitchen is not a cook for Sunday feast, and is a master. You need to find one cook. Can be also when we do class and we have another speaker. This master need to have a speaker and master offering. Just because maybe example in Italy we have sometimes we have not a cook on Sunday feast because we have but nobody wants to cook. Like often in Pujari, we have a Pujari, but often people doesn't like to cook, no? We also ask to visit. In some cases, sometimes you can also change the standard because master Prabhupada never wanted the devotee to become more sick. First is our ethic, after is sadhana, and the end is service.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain? Because like in Italy we did it many times. Now we have big groups with many elders for Sunday feast, but in the beginning it was sometimes, and we try to adjust the situation because it's not always possible to cook. And one time, actually 2 times, we did biscuits and tea. Because Sunday feast is not only big feast of prasada, but also, at least some prasada also. So how we think about it? Because master can be really good for somebody. Mostly when, like now in temple, maybe not so many devotees, so one cannot die just to finish the service, because it will be not anymore offering of devotion, but just must be kind.
No. You shouldn't.
Just to go out with the right understanding what means a master some service.
Yeah, what I mean with must, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that correction. When I said that, yeah, if you can't find a Sunday feast cook, someone has to jump in. Well, yes, the principle that Prabhupada gave is health sadhana service. You cannot do your sadhana if you're healthy, and you cannot do your service if you cannot do your sadhana. So you have to take care of your health. Again, it is up to your own integrity, because people can hide also behind that, saying, "Ah, I'm not healthy, I can't do it." So it's up to your... Krishna knows whether you are being lazy or not. What I meant with must is that, for instance, in the Leipzig temple, it also sometimes happened that we can't find a cook that can cook one feast. So sometimes we also then said, everybody bring something. So yes, the must is that the Sunday feast has to happen in some way, shape or form. That's the must. I mean, that's the service to Prabhupada. So the service has to happen in some shape or form. Because we know that people come to Sunday feast and sometimes they come even unannounced. So there must be an opportunity. There must be some kind of Sunday feast. And yes, if you can't find a cook, then you adjust according to what you can do. Maybe you can't. Maybe it isn't possible to cook a feast. But there, like you said, there has to be some form of prasadam. Or Leipzig temple was a little bit easier because it's not a temple. They have Sunday programs. So and yeah, many times we had a Sunday feast with everybody brings something. Two people bring salad, one person brings a cake, whatever. So it's then everybody does what they can and it comes together, and then sometimes you have even more than you would have had during a festival. So yeah, that's what I mean is that you should not break yourself. There's a Prabhupada disciple that once we met him also in Leipzig, and he said, yes, sometimes devotees think that service means that they should break themselves, that they should just go all out. And no, that's not really what it means. Service means, like real service means, that you do something that you can do for the rest of your life. Yes, there are emergency situations where you have to go outside of your comfort zone, but the service means that you do something that you can sustain. Once, I can't remember, it was quite soon after I got initiated, I went to Poland, before or after. Yeah, it was after. I went to Poland to be on a Polish tour, and I asked Badari Prabhu, what can I do to serve my Guru Maharaj? And he said, just be a good devotee. You know, it's like, just be a devotee, just be a good devotee, just chant your rounds, read, just do your service. You don't have to, not everybody can save the world. We think that, yes, we are saving the world, but we are saving the world by being devotees. And Krishna doesn't matter where you are. According to our, like, nobody could do what Tamal Krishna Prabhu could do, Tamal Krishna Goswami could do. He was one of a kind, and Krishna and Prabhupada used him accordingly. But there are many devotees that did small services, and Prabhupada was just as happy with them as with with Tamal Krishna Goswami. So the point is that we have to, we want to get to the point where we want to serve Krishna. where we do the service because we want to. Sometimes, yes, the material world happens, people, I mean, these days, not everybody lives in the temple. The temples are also it's also very difficult because this temple still has to run, whether there are 2 people or 5 people or 15 people. That's the difficulty of a temple. So sometimes our pujaris are really, 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 really stretched. And yeah, so you are right. Sunday feast was one example. In some way, shape or form, the Sunday feast has to happen. And in some way, shape or form, the lectures have to happen. Because it is the standard that Prabhupada gave us. He said morning program, Sunday feast, Pujari service. And that's the standard that we should try and keep. It would be to not have a lecture or to not have a morning program. To just let it fall. That would be bad. So yes, sometimes you have to adjust the standards. I'm trying to think of other examples. I mean, I heard, I don't know if this temple or other temples, but sometimes they have very, very, very few pujaris because everybody's sick or everybody's away, whatever. And then, because the standard would be that you cannot go on the altar if you have that time of the month. You cannot have your periods on the altar. But if there is only one pujari, you cannot now say that the service cannot continue. So once Prabhupada said, one lady asked him, we have this problem, what can we do? And he said, just wash your hair and then go on the altar. Or I think I also read somewhere, either not in a purport but in a letter, that in emergency cases, if you take a shower before you go on the altar, even though you have your lady days, then 2 hours.
2 hours, and you count as clean for 2 hours.
Yeah, you count as clean for 2 hours. So that's fine. But it's not, that shouldn't become the standard. That's the emergency case. But the point is that there is a service to do, and the service cannot not be done. That's the must. The service must continue in some way, shape or form. Last year, when my husband fell off the roof and nearly cut off his finger, the puja has to be done. But Karamakanana Swami said, no, your wife can help you, but she cannot do the puja because I'm not second initiated. But then when he cut his finger, he can't do the puja. So we asked Makunda Datta Prabhu from Vrindavan, what happens? He says, no, your wife has to do the puja. The puja has to happen. But, so I had to, Godrum sat beside me, and I had to do it because he had a big fat finger and a cast, so he could do some things, but there were things that I had to help him with. And that's an emergency. So, but the moment he could use his finger again, he does the puja, and I go back to just preparing everything and washing everything. That's my part of the service. But that's what I meant is, if there is a service to be done and there isn't anybody to do it, either someone has to go out of their stretched zone for that one day and cook, or you lower it down to a level where it is still possible. But the service has to happen. Again, Indradimna Swami always tells the people on the Polish tour that during the time where they are on the coastal towns, they have a morning program, but that's also again an adjustment. They don't start at 4:30 because you cannot start at 4:30 if you get home at 2:30 or at midnight. So the morning program, a very short form of the morning program, starts at 7 or at 6, I think, 7. And during the Woodstock, which is this music festival, there's no morning program. But he says that you do your rounds. That's your morning program. Just make sure you do your rounds every day. And there, because it's 2 months, there are a few Ekadashis in between. And I think sometimes there's also Balaram Purnim and a lot of things. And a lot of the devotees, usually, they fast on Ekadashi. And my Guru Maharaj always says that the point is that this is a festival in which we have to serve the people. And if you are fasting and you're only thinking of food, or you can't do because you're hungry, you're dizzy, whatever, don't fast. The point is that you have to do your service. So, and you have to be able, that's again getting back to your point, Valentina, health sadhana service. You have to take care of your health and your sadhana in order to do your service. If the last 2 ones aren't there, then it becomes difficult. But again, we see at the end of his life, Kadamakanana Swami took I don't know how many hours to do his rounds. But that doesn't matter how sick he was, he always chanted. And even when Jayadvaita Maharaj told him, he said, you don't have to chant 16 rounds anymore. It's like you're allowed, you're very sick. And Kadamakanana Swami said, please don't tell me that, don't give me that order, I just need to chant. So we do what we can. And in absolute emergency cases, it sometimes happened that we couldn't do the puja for our Shila, so Gojam would sit and do Manasa puja. That's also possible. But the point is that the emergency situation should not become the standard. It's an emergency for a reason. If in an emergency case you can only do biscuits and tea, or biscuits and juice for a Sunday feast, yes, that's fine, but that shouldn't become the standard. That is what you do in emergency cases. So, yeah, the point is, in an ideal society, people would want to help each other. If they see someone is struggling with his service, they jump in and help. That is the definition of being in a community. We don't let people do their service on their own just because that's my service, that's your service, and you do yours and I do mine. Sometimes we have to extend ourselves and help each other to do the service. And that's the point, is that the service has to continue. So in either way, shape or form. And if there's an emergency, fine. But as soon as possible, you go back to the proper standard. Is that okay, Valentina? Yes. Haribol, thank you for that contribution. That's important. And that's what I said in the lecture, is the emergency standard you cannot stay in emergency, just emotionally, physically, mentally, you cannot stay in that situation. That's where burnout comes from. And then you're useless. So the point is, you always want to be in a state where you can serve Krishna. Okay? Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripasinva Evacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam.
Grace Kamala-sita, dasi.
Introduce